Another MLB season is upon us, and what will happen in the 2021 MLB season? Find out next in my 2021 MLB Season Predictions video. Hello, I'm Bailey Leisure, and today on my channel I will be giving my annual MLB Season Predictions, as I will give the predictions of what will happen in the 2021 MLB season. So starting off of who will win the division, starting off in the American League East, I think it's pretty clear cut who's going to win this division, the New York Yankees. You look at their lineup, some of their great hitters like Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu was re-signed, Gary Sanchez, and others. They just have a great lineup. I really like what they did in the offseason, adding some great starting pitchers on the cheap, who maybe not what they once were, but I think could really have bounce back seasons in Corey Kluber and Jameson Taillon. The rest of the division, the Blue Jays, they're a very young and up and coming team. They did make the playoffs as part of the expanded playoffs last season, and the fact that they added Marcus Semien and then the big one, George Springer, into their lineup. I think the only question mark I really have is how's their starting pitching staff going to do? Is Robbie Ray going to be able to bounce back? How's Hyun-Jin Ryu going to do? There's some question marks there, but I think they just do enough to get second place and get the first wild card spot. Tampa Bay, obviously they sold off Blake Snell after the World Series controversy in Game 6 of pulling them. The Rays have some good talent, but they did lost Charlie Morton, so they lost 2/5 of their starting rotation, and I think that's really going to struggle with them, especially with what the Blue Jays were able to do. I think the Rays do compete for a wild card, but I think they finished third and just finished short of getting a wild card spot. The Red Sox, they did sell off another one of the killer bees from a couple years ago, and Andrew Benintendi. He went to the Royals. So it's for any shot at the Red Sox doing well this year, it's going to come down to if their players can bounce back. What can Xander Bogaerts do? Can JD Martinez bounce back? Can Alex Verdugo, develop and really help the Red Sox out, considering he was one of the pieces the Red Sox got in the Mookie Betts trade. So, and then in fifth, the Baltimore Orioles, they still have a long way to go in their rebuild. Moving on to the American League Central, this one was a little bit tough to predict, but I like the White Sox. Just what they have in their young talent, what they have been doing the last couple years. I think the only question mark I really have with them is their new manager, Tony La Russa. He's been out of the coaching game for a decade, so has the game passed him by? How can he adjust to the new generation of ball players that we've seen in the last couple of years, especially with a team like the White Sox, who's young and hungry? So can he can their styles mesh with his more of old school style? In second place, I was kind of back and forth between the Indians and the Twins. I ended up choosing the Indians. Neither team I expect to be a wild card team, simply because the Indians, they traded off one of the best stars they've had in the last 10 years in Francisco Lindor. They still have Jose Ramirez, still have Shane Bieber and some other pieces, but the Indians, I think the payroll and the fact that certain players are making more money than their entire payroll, I think is a big question mark. Minnesota's kind of on and off every year, so I think they finished third. And then you have the Royals and Tigers, who I think will finish fourth and fifth respectively. And then on to the American League West. I was kind of back and forth between the Astros and the Oakland A's. The Astros lost George Springer, one of the big bats in their lineup for the last several years. He went to the Blue Jays. I have some question marks with their starting pitching. Does Zach Greinke have some stuff left in the tank? And Lance McCullers Jr., return to the form that he had in 2017. Verlander's out for the year. Still, I think, recovering from Tommy John surgery. So it's kind of up in the air. Oakland did win the division, but I'm not sure if that's going to continue. But I ended up going with the Astros from experience. I think the key for them is going to be some of their bats like Bregman and Altuve, bouncing back. Carlos Correa, bouncing, leading this team, and others. Oakland, I think, finishes second, like I stated before. I think they'll get the second wild card spot. The Angels, I'm still waiting for them to improve that pitching staff, because It would be great if this team could, develop pitching, compete in the American League West and finally get Mike Trout back to the playoffs. And fourth, I went with the Rangers. They just cut, one of their longtime batters in Rougned Odor. And I think they're still kind of going through a bit of a rebuild. And then fifth, another team in a rebuild, the Mariners. Moving on to the National League, starting off with the NL East, you can make an argument for pretty much any of these teams to win the division. So, I would not be surprised if any of these teams won the division. But, a lot of people are going with the Mets because of the Francisco Lindor signing. But I'm going to go with the Braves. They brought Ozuna back. They added Charlie Morton, which I think will be huge for their pitching staff. They still have Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies. I just like their roster right now more than the Mets. I like Lindor, and their pitching staff is great with Jacob deGrom, and Pete Alonso and some other guys, but I think the Mets just finished short. I predict they will get one of the wild card spots, the second wild card. And third, who could compete for a wild card spot is the Nationals. I think it's a question if, their starting pitching staff can stay healthy, and Max Scherzer, Patrick Corbin, and, and Steven Strasburg if they can stay healthy. The Marlins, who were kind of a surprise last year. Still some young players, but I think the Marlins finished fourth. And then in fifth, the Phillies. They can compete for a wild card spot too, but, I still have some question marks with their pitching despite, having great guys like Didi Gregorius, Bryce Harper, and JT Realmuto, who they re-signed. But the Phillies, I think, still need some pitching staff for me to be confident in competing in the NL East. Moving on to the National League Central, I think the clear-cut favorite in this division, in my opinion, is the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, they added Nolan Arenado and really didn't have to give up that much for him. You add him with Paul Goldschmidt. The St. Louis Cardinals, I know, brought back their, longtime veterans in Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina. But just where the other teams are in the division, I just feel like St. Louis is just the better team right now. In second place, I went with the Cincinnati Reds, despite the fact that they lost Trevor Bauer to the Dodgers. But I like what the Reds did last year, and I'm confident that they will be able to, make some noise in the National League Central and maybe compete for a wild card spot. But I think they finished just short. Third, the Cubs. This is a contract year for many players, including their big three in Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, and I think Wilson Contreras, along also with Chris Bryant, so more like big four. But this team looks very different, and 2016 kind of feels like a long time ago with how much has happened with the Cubs organization. And fourth, the Brewers. Their pitching staff doesn't give me that much confidence. They still have Christian Yelich, but if they're out of it, they're obviously not going to sell off Yelich, but do you sell off a bullpen piece like Josh Hader? So we'll see what happens there. And then in fifth, who's going through a huge rebuild right now, the Pirates, who probably could be one of the worst teams in baseball this season. And then the NL West, considering what the Padres did in the offseason, they were the offseason champions, getting Blake Snell and Yu Darvish and some of the other players they added, adding along with some of their great, players like Fernando Tatis Jr., Trent Grisham, Manny Machado, and others. But the Dodgers, they're the Dodgers. They have the highest payroll in baseball. They have, a great farm system and, just a lot of other resources that other teams in baseball don't have. And the fact they went out and got Trevor Bauer is kind of a testament to that. And because of that, I think the Padres make it interesting, but I think the Dodgers, just get by the fact that just their roster and their construction is. I think the Padres do get the first wild card spot though. And then third, fourth, and fifth in this division, it can flip-flop. I think third and fourth are kind of a toss-up between the Diamondbacks and Giants. Giants going through a bit of a rebuild. Diamondbacks kind of, having an identity crisis with the fact that, they don't really have the resources to compete with the Dodgers and Padres. But do you really want to blow up what's left of your roster? So, and they just lost Zach Gallen, one of their top pitchers, who's, out right now with an injury. So that's a huge blow to them. I'll say the Diamondbacks finish third, the Giants finish fourth, and the Rockies will finish fifth. the fact that they gave Nolan Arenado and really undersold him. And if the Rockies are, they're out of it by the time the trade deadline comes up, we could see the, they sell off more pieces, selling, Trevor Story and possibly Charlie Blackmon. My predictions for who will win some of the big awards in baseball, specifically the Cy Young and the MVPs. In the American League, I think we'll have a repeat in the fact that I think Shane Bieber will win. I mean, he made an argument where he could have been the American League MVP last year. But, I think he's one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball, and I think he'll continue to do that. We could see some other pitchers, compete with him, like Garrett Cole and others, but I think Bieber will win again. In the National League, no surprise with this prediction, but I will go with Jacob deGrom. The fact that, he's, really, he could really, and now I think with adding Lindor, now the Mets have a really good chance at making the playoffs. And who knows, maybe being a dark horse in the National League. I think there's other teams that can compete, specifically on the Padres and Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, and possibly maybe even Chris Paddock. And then the Dodgers, you have Kershaw, you have Buehler, you have now Trevor Bauer, who just won it last year. But I'll go with deGrom. And then the MVPs, no surprise, the American League, I think Mike Trout he'll be the American League MVP. And then the National League MVP, I'll go with one of the best young stars in baseball right now, and Fernando Tatis Jr. from the San Diego Padres. And then my playoff predictions, in the ALCS, I think the teams that are going to be in the ALCS will be the Yankees, and I'm going to go with a bit of a dark horse. I'm going to go with the White Sox, and I'll take the Yankees over the White Sox. The American League, there's not really other than the Yankees, there really isn't a powerhouse team in that league, so I'll go with the Yankees. And then the National League, the NLCS, I'll go with the Dodgers over the Braves, a repeat of last year's NLCS, and I think the Dodgers will probably, win that more convincingly than they did last season, with the fact that they had to come back from a 3-1 deficit. And then the World Series, no surprise here, I'm going to go with the Dodgers over the Yankees. I think they'll win in 6 games, and the Dodgers will repeat as World Series champions. What are your predictions for the upcoming 2021 MLB season? How excited are you guys for opening day? As I'm recording this, it will be tomorrow. Very much looking forward to it. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts. As always, follow me on Twitter at Laser96 and at Bill Laser. Click like if you like the video, and subscribe if you like the content of my channel. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all later.